Good evening, and welcome to WANA Live, the reading series of the Writers Association of Northern Appalachia. I'm your host, Damian Dressick, and this is your other host.
Christina Fasonic. How are you, Damien?
I am very excited to be here. Welcome everybody who is tuning in to our fifth anniversary show. It's 5 years of WANA Live.
I cannot believe that it's been 5 years. It went by quickly and slowly all at the same time. And we have had the absolute pleasure of featuring some incredible writers on the show in the past 5 years.
Oh, we have. One of the things I think that is truly the hallmark of writers from the Appalachian region is the way in which they are generous with their
Oh,
time.
yes. And we've never had anyone say no, which is something to be said. And I feel like anytime I've reached out and said, we really love your work, would you come on the show? People have always said yes. And I feel so fortunate for that. We've had great conversations and it's been absolutely great. And we've sustained it. Who would have known that a show that was born from the pandemic would still be cooking along 5 years later? Are you ready to go
Not
live,
me.
Dave? What? Are you ready to do
We,
this
we,
thing? Are you ready to bring Ann out?
No, I am. I'm gonna. So okay. So we have our. We're really excited about our fifth anniversary guest. We've got the one and only Ann Pancake. Ann is a native of West Virginia. She's the author of two short story collections, Given Ground, which won the 2000 Bakeless Fiction Prize, and Me and My Daddy Listen to Bob Marley from Counterpoint Press in 2015. She's also the author of Strange as This Weather Has Been. Based on interviews and real events, the novel was one of Kirkus's top 10 picks for 2007. It also won the 2007 Weatherford Award and was a finalist for the 2008 Orion Book Award. In addition, Anne has won it almost might be shorter to list things she hasn't won, but I'm going to go with what things she has. The Whiting Award, an NEA Grant, a Pushcart Prize, creating writing fellowships from states including Washington, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. She earned a PhD in English literature from the University of Washington and a BA from the University of West Virginia.
Almost. That's West Virginia University, Damien.
Oh, goodness.
That's okay. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Oh, it's so great
Thank
to
you
have
for
you
making
on
time
the
to be
show.
on.
Yeah, you're welcome. My pleasure.
So what will you be reading tonight? We're
I'm
always
gonna,
here.
I'm going to read a piece that's called Ricochet, but it's actually a chapter from Strange as Weather Has Been. It features the characters Corey, Tommy, and Dane, who are some of the children in that, part of the family of children that are in that novel. These kids live in southern West Virginia, and the novel's about mountaintop removal and how it affects the people that live there. So yeah, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Corey is 10, Tommy's 6, Dane is 12, and then their friends will be with them. So I'm just going to read that.
Wonderful. We'll be back to chat with you in a few minutes.
Okay. All right. Thank you all so much for listening. This is Ricochet from Strange as This Weather Has Been. All Sunday morning and into early afternoon, Corey and Tommy work on Corey's bike in the road. Dane pretends to watch the races with his dad, Jimmy Make, but every once in a while, he goes to the window to check on them. Jimmy tells him to settle his butt down. Finally, on one of his trips to peek out the drapes, which Jimmy has drawn to make the races more vivid, Dane sees that his younger brothers are gone. He grabs a piece of bread while Jimmy's not looking and heads out to see what they're into now. As he walks down the road, he squishes the soft bread into little packed balls that he sticks in his mouth and sucks. No threat of rain in the sky, but the road, the yards too, are empty, and Dane wonders if that is because of the races or the heat. Then he spots two figures trotting up the road toward him, but he knows they aren't Tommy and Corey because they're exactly the same height. It's the twins, David and Bebo. Even though they're identical, each blonde mallet head shaved uneven, near bald in spots, brushy in others, you can easily tell them apart. David acts normal, while Bebo acts like a car with bad brakes. You know where Tommy and Corey's at? Dane asks them when they get close enough. Bebo had come with his head lowered and his right hand jerking his gear shift. Now he jogs in place, his motor idling in his mouth. They're up in the big drain, David says. Corey and Seth are having a bike contest. Idiot, Bebo shrieks. We aren't supposed to tell anybody. Oh, idiot yourself, says David. It's just Dane. Bebo squeals his heels in the gravel and speeds off, David following, both moving in the direction of the big drain. Dane watches. He weighs whether seeing the contest, being there with the others, is worth the dangers of the big drain. He sucks on his bread, the nuggets lodge between his teeth and tongue, a comfort in his mouth. It doesn't look like rain. Even if it does rain, the water probably won't come out of the big drain because the water always comes from where it shouldn't, and the big drain is where it should. Dane leans over, ties his shoe, and jogs after the twins. The big drain sticks out of Yellow Root Mountain about a third of the way up its side. It is hidden, deeply buried in woods and in brush. It's a secret place, despite how big it is, and the only people who even know about it are those who other people have shown. Exactly why it's there, Dane does not know. It's twice as tall or more than he is, and where it disappears into the mountain, about 40 steps from its mouth, it's capped with a grate. Many people have tried to get through this grate, but the grate is a thick, rusted, crisscross steel, and nobody has ever managed to get past it. On its other side, the grate is hung up with shale and slate and rocks and coal, mountain guts, and the guts wash onto the floor of the culvert now and then, the water behind them coming from who knows where. Beyond the grate and the dirt, the drain disappears in a narrowing dark, and Dane, when he goes to the big drain at all, keeps well away from the grate. He hauls himself up to the drain's mouth, huffing and stumbling, passing the no trespassing signs. He pauses at the opening, taking in the scent, a heavy odor of cool dirt and old concrete and getting the ground. He rolls his bread in his mouth, peering into the drain. It is hard to see from light into dark, and although Dane squints and strains, he still makes out only the boys' drain-distorted voices and their shapes, darker darks that move against a lighter dark that doesn't. A mucky, ankle-deep spit crawls out of the drain and dribbles from its mouth. The temperature drops as soon as he enters the tunnel. He walks the culvert spread-legged, straddling the gooey water, his tennis shoes slanting awkward down the concrete walls. His eyes slot open to the dark like a cat's, and he sees it is Corey and Tommy and Bebo and David and also Clyde McAfee, Seth not here yet. They have to know Dane has come in, but they act like they don't. This is what they always do. Even Tommy, only 6, ignores his older brother here where he can afford to, when he doesn't need Dane to listen. Bebo is trying to climb the drain wall by reversing up one side of the tunnel as far as his tennis shoes will take him, then barreling down through the bottom and sprinting up the other side until he crashes to his knees. The drain rocks and booms with the muffler noises from his mouth. Clyde, a boy about 14 but ignorant acting, catches on and starts shouting his own voice through the drain. His voice is changing. He can holler from low, moany hoo all the way up into whistle-pitched shrieks, the concrete rolling and enlarging in his voice, and that sets off David, who sings a commercial at the top of his lungs, and Tommy, who makes like a fire whistle, and Bebo, who simply screams. Dane shrinks. He feels the crotch of his pants stretch from the pressure of the straddle, and he wills it not to split. The noise sluices back and forth along the drain walls, deafening and crazy. He wants to slap his hands over his ears, but he'll lose his bread. Only Corey doesn't holler. Corey, 10, 2 years younger than Dane, stands near the grate to the side of the water, up the wall a little, his arms crossed over his chest, his bike leaning against his hip. His heavy bangs shield the top part of his face like a visor. Corey wears his camouflage pants and an army green t-shirt, his sleeves pushed up to his shoulder nubs to show off the chamois rag he has tied around his bicep. Dane knows it's Corey's favorite outfit. At the sides of his body, he feels his own arms, flabby and frail. Suddenly, they all shut up. They're watching something behind Dane. Dane turns. Although he couldn't see from the light into the dark, from dark to light, he can easily, and he sees Seth pushing his bike to the drain mouth. What has shut up the others is not so much Seth's approach as it is Seth's clothes. He wears some sort of racing getup, maybe motocross, and true, he has outgrown it, the waxy groundhog blubber popping through so the shirt can't stay tucked, but still, it is a racing uniform, neon colors and a big black 44. For a moment, it strikes everyone silent. Tommy is the first to crack it. Corey, Corey, Corey. He chants his loyalty, which triggers Clyde again, and then David and Bebo. And Dane, caught off guard, claps his hands over his ears and loses the last of the bread slice to the poison water trickle. What's the winner get? Clyde asks. $10, Seth says, something Dane knows Corey doesn't have. That's if he wins, says Corey. I win, I get to ride his four-wheeler. Bebo revs the engine in his mouth. Clyde will mark it, Corey tells Seth. 3 tries. Seth nods. Everyone knows Clyde is impartial and has shown up only to see somebody get hurt. Corey pulls his bike as high as he can up one side of the culvert. Their mom bought the bike last summer at the IGA lot off some man from McDowell County, a mock mountain bike with no gears, and it was rusted. So Corey and Tommy have sanded it down and repainted it with some old paint they found that didn't stick good to metal, which turned the bike into a kind of mess that Corey has convinced himself and Tommy looks tough. Dane watches Corey climb the wall. Corey pauses once he gets the bike as high as he can. He seems to focus and then gauge where he is headed on the other side of the tunnel, and he pounces on the bike. Then he's pedaling as hard as he can down the face of the wall. Corey's so close to the bike, it's like he's melted into it. He sprays through the slime and the drain bottom, still pedaling, Bebo shrieking when he gets splashed, and Corey sails up the opposite wall, pedaling still, as high as he can until he has to spring off the bike to keep from wrecking. The bike crashes back down to the floor of the drain, but Corey lands like a fly on his hands and feet on the curve of the wall. Clyde jumps up with a piece of coal and scratches a black scrape to mark how high Corey has gone. Corey slides back down, brushes off his hands and knees, and picks up his bike. He saunters to a spectating position. Seth's bike matches the motocross outfit, a neonish grasshopper green with jet black piping, and Seth claims the bike has 21 gears. He clambers up the culvert wall, trying for the offhandedness that Corey carried. He doesn't start quite as high as Corey did, and although he begins pedaling, by the time he hits the bottom, the pedals get ahead of his feet, so he has to throw his legs out and away from the bike, the pedals spinning free, and he has barely mounted the opposite wall before the bike, not moving fast enough to keep its balance on the incline, starts to sway. Seth slams a shoe to the ground and catches himself before he tips. Corey, 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 hollers Tommy. I didn't get a decent start on that one, Seth says. It's a mutter, but the culvert swells it to where they all hear. You can't be worried about hurting your bike, says David. Bebo and Tommy scream, Corey, 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 Corey. Corey sidles back into view. In the poor light of the drain, Dane can't see Corey's face very clearly, and the absence of detail throws into even greater relief Corey's bearing, his stride, his body shape. Dane sees how all of Corey matches. Dane feels himself shrinking, and then there comes to Dane a picture of Corey as a toddler in Pampers, half Dane's size, Dane holding Corey's hand. Dane looks at Corey climbing up the big drain wall. He can't unsort the feelings that he carries. When Corey Corey leaps on his bike. This time he rises a good 5 inches higher than the last time because this time he lets himself wreck harder. He splits from the bike at the last second, tumbling into a deliberate roll like a stuntman, his arms wrapped around his head like a helmet, and just before he strikes the water, he springs to his feet. The bike, in the meantime, has slammed to the drain floor with more force than earlier. When Corey pulls it up, they see the fender is so badly bent, Corey has to twist it back with both hands to get the tire to turn free. Tommy and Bebo and David and now Clyde drop the name Corey altogether, chanting instead a massive animal grunt, huh, 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 huh. And the hums spiral the drain walls, ricochet and loop until they overlap with one another. Dane hunches his shoulders up around his ears. This time it looks for a little while like Seth might actually forget the bike and try. He manages to drag it to a starting point even farther up than Corey has reached either time, and he pounces onto the bike after it's already in motion, and he keeps up with his pedals. But then, again, the hesitation, the second thought, and Seth, in the process of trying not to wreck the bike, turns it over anyway, gently, without damage, far, far short of Corey's marks. "Corey won!" screams Bebo. "Corey!" shrieks Tommy. "He did not," says Seth. "We get 3 turns." "That's 2 out of 3, says David. "Ain't no way you can win." Then they hear Corey's voice called from down the tunnel. "Let's just erase the 2 earlier and do her sudden death. Doesn't matter to me." The confidence in Corey's voice, the offhand charity he grants Seth, all of this moves in Dane, a mixed up moving. Dane sees Seth nod at Corey's offer. Corey snatches his bike back up the concrete wall, the wheel under the just bashed fender making a peculiar click. He climbs so high he has to tip his head to keep it from grazing the drain ceiling. It seems he's too high to even mount the bike without overturning the moment he does, and Dane flares up in his chest, a hot chill panic. But Corey does mount the bike, and he does not turn over, and again, molded against the frame like a movie Indian on a war pony, he swoops down the wall, hits the water so hard it parts more than splashes, and then catapults up the other side, by some miracle, still managing to pedal. Too awed to feel fear anymore, Dane watches with his neck craned back from his squat, his mouth gaping open, as Corey shoots up the other side, passing both his old marks, and then Dane sees Corey is flying. He's not pedaling anymore, but the bike's still going. It's like the bike is coasting, but up, not down, and all 5 boys realize that Corey's going for a 360, a complete circuit of the tunnel, marble in a tube. Corey has busted gravity, and every face is upturned, every mouth sprawled wide while Corey flies. He's maybe 10 feet short of where he began the circuit, so upside down his hair streams straight down off the top of his head when gravity remembers. Dane's breath makes a quick moan suck. Corey is coming down first because by this time Corey is underneath the bike, and Dane springs to his feet in time to see Corey slam into the bad water, the bike close after him, landing partly on top of his legs. Corey cringes into a crumble, his knees pulled to his chest, his hands cupping his face, and the other boys rush to huddle around him, Tommy dropping on his knees, David pulling at the bike, but Dane cannot move. Rigid leaning, forward straining, but he cannot move, his stomach chock full with the horror of a dead Corey when he sees Seth sneaking out. Not blatantly sneaking, he's too proud for that. He's making it look like he's just quietly waddling home, but Dane knows what he's doing. And he knows too that he has to stop Seth. No one else sees. He can make up for not being able to run to Corey by stopping Seth. And as Seth passes him, Dane tries. He reaches out and takes Seth's thick, soft arm without really clamping down on it. And he is surprised at how taut the skin is stretched over the flesh. Seth snatches the arm away, the fat popping out of Dane's fingers, and snarls, "Get your goddamn hands off of me." Corey is not dead. From his heap in the putrid water, Corey has already sensed what Seth will try. He tosses the bike off his legs, it clattering against the wall. The four-boy huddles, scattering in surprise, and Corey vaults up on his one good leg, half his body soaked in the who knows what's all in it water, and he screams after Seth, "You damn well better get me that four-wheeler ride." Seth stops right there in the entrance to the big drain. He casually turns around. Seth, so smug he doesn't even bother to raise his voice, speaks into the amplifier of the big drain. "Sorry, my dad says can't no kids ride that four-wheeler but me." He pauses. "Liability." Dane swings his face back toward Corey in time to see Corey's mouth drop, the first non-deliberate emotion he has let slip. Then it snaps shut and his loose hand seize into fists. Then the mouth balls back open and Corey is yelling, "You son of a bitch! You promised, you son of a bitch! You lying sack of shit!" Seth has stepped clear down out of the drain, so Dane sees him only from his thighs up, but he turns and in the light, like Seth is now, Dane can see his face lifted in a sneer. And then Seth tosses back like it really doesn't matter, that he'd just like to throw them a last bone to worry. "At least I ain't got a faggot for a brother." He sinks away down the bank until Dane's seen only the back of his pinkish head, and then nothing at all. Corey has started after him for getting his hurt leg, and when he comes down on it with his second step, he screams, "Fuck!" and falls again. At the faggot, Dane's face shot full of warmth, and he shut his eyes to hide himself. But he's been called faggot more than once, and coming from the defeated Seth, it doesn't mean as much as it might have. It means mostly the embarrassment that the others heard, and the faggot humiliation is dampened by Dane's worry over what he should do now that Corey is hurt. The others have pulled in around Corey again, and finally Dane is moving toward Corey. Corey is his little brother and he is hurt. Dane is moving to check on Corey, see how bad it is, then run down and fetch Jimmy Make, and he creeps in and leans down to get a better look. Dane can see the bright water in Corey's eyes from the anger and the pain, what little light the drain holds reflecting in that water, and Dane knows Corey has his mind jammed down on keeping those tears tight in their sockets. Corey stares Dane right back hard. "You," Corey hisses, "you goddamn homo." For several seconds, they are all quiet in a new way. Then David steps away from Dane, a delayed flinch, and Bebo states at normal volume like he's just trying it on for the fit in his mouth, "Homo." Then he decides he likes it, a candy fireball on his tongue. "Homo, homo, homo," Clyde echoes with a crooked snicker. He cackles, "Homo, homo." And then it's all five of them at the same time, Corey included. It is even Tommy who has only the vaguest notion of what the word means. "Homo, homo, homo, homo," hollering and homo hooting and homo squealing that slosh the tunnel to its brim with the word. They ricochet it side to side. At first they shout at cross purposes, one voice's word overlapping the end of another's voice and canceling part of both out, the homos knocking against each other. But soon they hit it in unison, a harmonized cheer, the homos sluicing from concrete wall to concrete wall, the drain doubling the word's volume and size, tripling it, quadrupling homo, and Dane turns and runs. He jumps out of the big drain and tears off in the opposite direction from where Seth has gone. He smashes through third-growth trees and scrub and vines, slipping and picking himself up before he hits full ground, his hands and arms beating away in front of him. And then, before he sees it, he's crashed into an immense thicket of blackberries. He's snared deep before he even knows where he is, their canes whipping at him, thorns ripping. They snag in his oversized pants. Dane swims and wheels. He's already kicked Tommy, Bebo, David, and Clyde into weepy balls. He hears the drain echoes swirling with their echoes and sobs, and now he's turned to take on Corey. Dane fights Corey with fingernails and fists, feet, and teeth. He punches, pinches, bites. He kicks, slaps, trips, rolls the blackberry patch, continuing far past where he thought it would end. Canes pricking, tearing. Suddenly he finds himself at the brink of the 4-foot drop to the road 50 yards from his house. His momentum carries him right over it, and he hits the road so hard his shins ring, but he does not fall. He hears his tennis shoes smack through the broken asphalt, and he sprints past home. Chansey surges out from under the porch to follow him. Dane tries to jump the creek, but lands not just inches, but feet shy of the far side, and wet to his shins, he scrambles up the eroded bank. His breath's worn thin, tearing in his throat. The bones in his legs wobbly as grass stalks. When he's far enough up the draw to lose sight of their house, he drops from a lope to a trot, and finally Dane walks. He stiff walks, his legs trembling, his hands on his hips now, greasy with sweat. It's running down the middle of his chest, the small of his back. He passes the old pig pen, wooden slats a tumble, empty now even of pig odor. The old chicken house an exhausted slump. And finally he drops down into the fine humped grass, and he sits with his head on his knees, heaving after his breath, but he doesn't cry. Dane never cries. Corey does, Dane whispers. And although his belly grates chock full of hard stuff, grinding, he almost never throws up. Almost never, Dane whispers out loud. Okay, I'll stop there. It goes on a little farther, but I think that gives you a taste of what that chapter is.
I don't know. I was sitting on the edge of my seat. I've read this book so many times, and I feel like, but wait, I want to know what happens.
Thanks, Christina.
So, I have this question. I feel maybe it's not a question. I don't know, but I've been enthralled throughout this piece that you're reading and throughout the whole novel about how Appalachian kids in the North, the South, all over, that we often played in industrial waste.
Yeah.
Who hasn't climbed up on a slag heap? Who hasn't played with glass remnants? Who hasn't? So, I mean, what's it like to sort of be in that world again as you were writing this and think about what I have found is that when I tell people stories about where I'm from, they don't believe that it exists. They think it's post-apocalyptic or something. And I'm like, no, this is like my past and my present here in the Mountain States. So could you tell us a little bit about what it's like to sort of get into that space of the characters and make it believable to people who don't want to believe it or can't?
I hope it's believable. I mean, I think it's I just kind of enter the character and follow where the character is going to go, whoever that is in that particular chapter. But also, like you say, I'm drawing on all the kinds of things that we did as kids. And where I lived, it was more agricultural, but there was plenty of trash and waste to get into. And I'm also drawing on the experience of being in Southern West Virginia doing these interviews with kids who were living directly in the mess. And hearing them talk about it, and once riding up to see a big slurry impoundment with these kids and hearing them talk from their perspective how they saw all of it. And part of it was scary; they weren't dumb, but the other part was noticing where there might be a really cool place to do something kind of dangerous or risky or something fun in all this. These, like this drain, which is a leftover drain from a mine. And then there was another place they called the snake ditches. This is in real life. And that was some kind of runoff culverts. So I guess, which were concrete. So I think the snakes hung out in there. And they would also talk about, riding their four-wheeler up on these valley fills, stuff they weren't really going to do. But so that's kind of where the ideas came from.
Yeah. And it's hard to wrap your brain around the idea of how a toxic wasteland can be a playground.
Yeah.
But children will do whatever children do, and they play. And I the entire time I was reading this novel, I was thinking about that and about my own childhood and all the things that we did that I look back on, and not just like, you know, doing dumb stuff and almost falling to our deaths off of a water tower or something, but like literally our hands in these waste products. My grandmother used to chew tar when she was a girl because she said it made her teeth white.
Where'd you get the tar, off of railroad tracks or what?
No, you know how sometimes you'll see tar between the pieces on a sidewalk where they
oh wow, okay.
Her and her girlfriends would be walking along the streets and they'd pick up a piece of tar and chew on it like gum. That it never ran out of flavor.
I bet it didn't.
And it made her teeth white. And I'm like,
oh my, that is interesting.
So it's interesting though to reflect on like the joy and also the terror and also this tension of our world is being destroyed, but we're still living in it.
Yeah, which is even more pertinent right now than it was, you know, when this book was published almost 20 years ago, but 17 years ago.
Yeah. As somebody who has been an adolescent boy playing in the detritus of extraction industries, my goodness, do you do an amazing job of capturing that? I think I've been in the tunnel with those boys.
Oh, yeah.
Laura Jackson makes that same comment, sort of. She says, every parent of boys can picture this scene perfectly.
Oh, thanks, Laura. Yeah.
By the way, she said she pulled over. She messaged me and said, I'm pulling over. I'm in Jackson County, West Virginia, but I'm not missing hearing Ann Pancake.
Oh, wow. Thanks, Laura.
So I also wanted to know, as I was reading this, and I'm sure you've been asked this question a lot of times, Jimmy Make we don't hear from him. He is a character. We hear these multiple perspectives, the children, the mom, but we don't hear from Jimmy Make. And so what was that about? How did you come to that conclusion?
You know, I think it was I didn't really think about it until, okay, so there's two ways to answer it. One is there was a chapter from Jimmy Make's perspective. So he had like this epilogue, and it was a couple years, maybe, I forget, it was 1 or 2 years after they left and they moved to North Carolina. So he's down there with the boys, and Bant and Lace are back. And so there was a whole epilogue about him hearing about a flood on the news and all this. But when I turned it in, the editor said that felt anticlimactic, and I agreed with that to add that, to just like tack that epilogue on. So then Jimmy Make was gone, but I didn't really think about that part until people started asking me like, why does he not have, you know? And I think it's a flaw. I think if I had this to do over again, I'd give him a couple more chapters, and I think probably I unconsciously avoided it because at that time he would have been the hardest character for me to inhabit. I mean, Corey wasn't easy to inhabit, but I think it would have been hard for me to get in Jimmy. I think I could do it better now, but back then I couldn't do it. So
yeah, wow, that's interesting. And I think sometimes we don't know as writers what is happening until somebody points it out, and we go, oh, you know, I never really
all the time.
And I think the reading public is surprised about this.
I have noticed that, yes.
They think we know all the answers, but we really don't.
Yeah. Well, I always tell my students, I mean, the power of, if it's a piece of art, it's going to go beyond the author's intentions, right? And so the author doesn't have the final word on what it means. If that's it, then it's probably not a real powerful piece of art.
No, then it's a journal. It's a journal, not fiction.
Yeah.
Damien, would you like to add anything? Sorry, I'm just talking away over here.
I love the language. There's a moment where you say gravity remembers, and I love the way they pull from kind of that sort of close in with the boys to that other kind of perspective. It's like, whoa, that's such a wonderful.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sort of still with the idea of the frankly disturbing authenticity of literally being like this 10-year-old, 12-year-old boy, and I think it's the flatness of like you think like we're talking about this industrial waste and detritus and this and being a kid in Northern App when they closed down the subsurface mines and everything turned to strip mining. We were definitely riding bicycles, riding motorcycles, playing it like this was the landscape.
Yeah, exactly.
even think about it. Like, what other landscape do we know? It was our only frame of reference.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And like being in this, like, well, of course, all the water in the streams is orange. Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah,
for sure. So, Anne, what project are you working on now? Can you tell us at all? You don't have to.
Well, I'm working on a novel that I've been working on for like 5 years, so hopefully I'll finish it. It's again about it's environmental, but it's more about environmental grief and how that affects mental health and how one learns to live with environmental grief. So it's kind of there's no character, and it's nothing like Strange as Weather's Been, but it is in a way a progression from that. As I think I had more hope when I published that book, and I have less hope now. So it's more about dealing with how to live well, in these circumstances that we're in right now. So.
And I don't think
I'm sorry.
I said I don't think we talk about that.
Yeah, not yet. I think it's going to be coming, but yeah.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for an amazing reading.
You're very welcome, David.
The work is the work, and it's very, very, very good. I love it. But wow, it was so amazing to hear you to read. To hear you read,
Thank you.
I'm in awe.
Well, thank you both for doing this series and for inviting me, and all you're doing for Northern Appalachian writers and Appalachian writers in general.
Yes, I have a dream. One day we'll all just be Appalachian writers.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anne. And thank you all for listening and watching week after week for the last 5 years. We are seriously humbled by that and so grateful. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Good night, everybody.